Good morning, Samoa! Because apparently New Zealand had its time zone change and I didn't realize, and I had to scramble for a place in the world where it was 8 a.m. and it's a very difficult place in the world to find a city because it's between New Zealand and Hawaii and there's like nothing there. And welcome to Star Trek Picard, Season 3, Episode 7, Dominion. Hello, best of Trek, worst of Trek. Welcome to the channel. But I feel like right away I have to start off with saying that that is, as you know, I just finished the episode like probably 15 minutes ago. That was almost easily and undeniably the single best episode of Star Trek since 2005. And beyond that, that is an episode that instantly and easily it would cement itself is among the best of Star Trek. And beyond all that, an episode where I would reach under my desk, pull out my little drawer. It's all rusty, it's dusty, because it's only been opened like 3 times in the past. And I pick up one of my awards of perfection, my very sought-after, very hard-to-achieve perfection awards. I've only ever handed them out 3 times, and I frame it, I adjust it, I start putting it in its frame and hanging it on the wall, because that episode, just an episode that would be unbelievably good. I mean, if we go on, you know, there's the scene, like, early on that stands out, where Beverly's standing there, like, holds up the phaser, in just like everything about that. I gave an oath to never do harm, and I'm starting to question that. The way she delivers it, the writing itself, the way her hands shake, because the way that this is something that absolutely that character would never ever do under any circumstances until now that she's here. The character who's a mother first and foremost, beyond anything you'd absolutely believe would do this. It felt like it honestly felt like I was watching Deep Space Nine. One of the few things I have handed out that perfection award to. If that whole thing about the changeling, Vadic, you know, the torture, what happened during the war. If Deep Space Nine had kept going on, Season 8 would have been about Section 31, kind of going into that, taking that down. But this felt like a season out of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, circa Seasons 10 to 15. They just would have done this. I'm on mobile, but I can only hear it if I turn up the volume really bad. Is that me or the episode? Benjanium. I'll get back to that, though. But this, I mean, despite 2 flaws that I would consider quite serious, and I'll go into, it's the perfection level, just amazing the whole way through. If you were paying attention, though, you might notice that the third word I said in this big spiel... Oh, no, let's go on. This was much better in my head. The Data and Geordi's scenes was the first of what I've been asking for a long time, which is like the proper make you cry kind of scene. Like at the Season 3 of Discovery's got that bit on the station with the guy who's like, you know, for 40 years I've watched this position as my father and my grandfather. You know, that's like a teary scene, but like a proper, like, similitude, like, I don't know, come on, Nathan. Half a Life, Real Life, you know, those kind of episodes, like, something that we'd never seen before, because, of course, Nemesis was the end of TNG, that I didn't realize was missing, and I just learned it was missing, and I just learned how perfectly sensible that whole thing is. Like, astounding. But if you were paying attention, you will notice that the third word in this big spiel I just gave was almost, because it's amazing how, in my mind, one moment can take that extraordinarily rare perfection level writing and all that development, all that everything I'm gonna talk about and haven't talked about. Grab it, crumple it up from the top of the Star Trek list and slam it way down towards the bottom. I like this episode. No, I think actually it's going to be quite a while before I can really articulate exactly how much this one thing detracts from the episode, but it takes all of those definitely the best. That perfection level award went back in its drawer, and kind of fell down a bit. Where it feels weird starting with like the negative right away, but this scene, which was amazing, the confrontation of are we really so morally corrupt? I can't remember the word Picard uses, that so morally astray that we're ready to do this after hearing this story that Vedic is a creation of the Federation, either by its negligence for letting Section 31 break away in the first place, or just downright refusal to do anything about Section 31 for convenience, to at worst Section 31, Starfleet knew about it all along, and everything it did is modern Star Trek kind of goes along with. To hear this story, to do all this, to have Vadic as the prisoner, to see all this and go, yeah, fuck it. Let's just execute her. Let's just do that. Crush her. It makes sense. I'm going to get into more of this, but that, when the episode got to that point, I fell off hard. Even in the 20 minutes since that scene, I think I've come back a lot. I'm not handing this episode a perfection level writing. I will give everything, except for that scene, a perfection level award. But that, I have to say, is my general thoughts thing. That seriously took away from what was otherwise not just the single greatest episode of Star Trek in 2 decades, maybe. I'd have to look at Enterprise again, but one of the single greatest Star Trek episodes. And the only reason it's one of is because it's really hard to actually tell you which one's the best when there are almost 800. But yes, I am going to spend basically the rest of this episode gushing about how good it is, and then those 2 other little flaws, major flaws that I don't think matter, because one of them isn't even with this episode. We'll get to it, but that was the intro I had planned. Alex, you can interrupt me now whenever you feel like it. I told Alex that intro was going to be that. The whole point of the intro was I couldn't be interrupted. So now let's get to the comments.
Booty.
Before we start really getting into this episode. Let's pick a good thumbnail. There we go. Best Trek vs. Trek. Hey, love this episode. Hey, Best of Trek is in the person, not presumably this episode. Yeah, best of the season. Oh, I think unquestionably, even though that scene detracts from the episode, this is the best of the season, by far. This is still probably this is still up there with the best episodes of modern Star Trek, and I might even still throw it in with the best of Star Trek. I mean, it was a core scene, and it was one I think they really fumbled. You took Jean-Luc Picard and went him say, yes, I have strayed so far from the path that I am prepared to do something awful. But no, the rest of this was incredible. You just don't get my shiny perfection level writing award. Just BK, hey everybody, is anyone else hearing the background noise? Could that be ambient sound noise? There is, now that I brought it up, I kind of hope, I forgot recording. I'll have to download this episode again. My mic has a persistent hum. Hang on. There we go. There's I want to get rid of it, and I've tried a lot of things, and I keep trying, and I can get rid of it in videos, but not streams as so far, and that's probably what you're hearing. And that's what everyone else is saying. Okay. Stretch VK, it's a great episode, because for me, the new changelings being Daystrom tested Section 39 experiments was all really brilliant choice. I'll get into, all of these points individually in much more detail, but I want to say I love all of that, except potentially the fact that it was Daystrom, and how much Starfleet would have been involved with Section 31 during the war. That is my only complaint with this whole arc. But that's setting. Like, even if it's a problem, in my head, I could just say, oh, it wasn't Daystrom Station. It was Section 31. There we go. I've just fixed it. It wasn't Daystrom Station at the time. Boom. The sound is highly pitched, cracky humming noise, but it's not super noticeable for me. Rutro, is my other mic failing? It's a flawed, slow point in the episode. Yes. But let's actually start off something weird. I was worried going into this episode. If you're not aware, recently Star Trek Academy was officially announced. And I was concerned. Well, no, sorry, not. I'm getting ahead of myself. Because I'm trying to get a link up. Memory Alpha. So I did a live stream yesterday about kind of going over some of the news. And also, like, the last basically hour of that was talking about Picard and continuity. If you missed it, you'd probably like at least that last half. But I got Memory Alpha up before the live stream. So I could kind of reference names and stuff that were brought up. And I saw this, the homepage to Memory Alpha, and I was like, this is just the page I'll have up. And I saw this, and I went, hang on, why is Tuvok under a list of things that seem to be related to Star Trek Picard? And I was like, oh, did I spoil he's in the episode? Because when I saw this was called Dominion, I was very happy with how much I've avoided the internet to avoid spoilers. And so I rather stupidly did this, and I saw that. His image wasn't up, and I went, oh, I really hope knowing that both Tuvok is in this episode is a changeling is not critical. So I was very happy when very quickly we established that Tuvok was a changeling. That's not at all, that was not critical to the episode, but I was very worried going in that I had absolutely ruined this episode for me. And so I'm very glad to have gotten something that, like, for most of it, I was I was framing how I wanted to award my perfection award. Because I take that very seriously. Like, when I say a show or an episode is perfect, I don't mean that literally. Everything I've ever given that, which, by the way, would be Deep Space Nine, the Doctor Who episode Heaven Sent, and Steven Universe, all have flaws of varying levels. For example, Deep Space Nine, I think, has the flaw that, other than the original series, it is the single worst episode, single worst series when it comes to handling gender. And that's an incredibly serious criticism, like, especially from me. But everything else around it is so good it kind of makes up for it. There was a point to that. I can't remember what it was. But, yeah, I mean, still, everything that I thought was perfect is still there. That was just the one more straw where I'm like, you don't get this award anymore, basically. But it's good seeing Tim Russ, and I don't know if this was intentional or not, but there was even a bit where he's giving his lines and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know, like, something about this feels a bit off. Like, maybe Tim Russ had just been a while since he played a Vulcan. He's quite a funny guy. He's like the least Vulcan person I can think of. And I'm like, maybe it's just because his voice is older. He sounds like Tuvok. Maybe there's something different. And then immediately after having that thought, the thing that was on screen was a little graphic that said voice inconsistency. And so I'm like, did I literally just invent something feels off about Tuvok's voice? Or was Tuvok intentionally playing himself a little off because he's a changeling? Like, accident or not, that added to the episode. But loving the ears. Yeah, I mean, it's Tuvok. Wait, we've seen old Tuvok, haven't we? Here's something I like to do. Star Trek Voyager old Tuvok. Come on, let me get this up. It's the finale, isn't it? Where we see Tuvok, like, probably around about now. What's the finale? Oh, it's called Endgame. That's right. Endgame, Tuvok. There we go. How right was Voyager? So this is what Tuvok looks like at the age of whatever. And this is what Voyager said he'd look like. So yeah, the ears are a bit bigger. I think they're a bit, different. But yeah, that's probably like the most accurate aging up of a character we've seen. But no, it's good seeing, even though it's not Tuvok. It's nice seeing Tim Russ. It's sensible. I still feel like we have to be building up to some sort of Janeway, whether it's Star Trek Janeway the show, or like Janeway's in the finale commanding Voyager. Like, I don't know, it just feels like that. But it's great seeing Tim Russ. This, though, is problem A with the otherwise perfect episode. Which, again, it's weird we're starting with negatives, but I promise we won't get to another negative for a while.
No.
So the whole point, after this call, oh, by the way, I also love that when the Changeling turns into Riker, it's like Riker is a corpse. That's really well done, because this entire episode is, like, incredibly well done. But, like, right afterwards, we learn that the whole point they're trying to do is expose the Changeling conspiracy to Starfleet. That is their goal. That's the goal. They're trying to tell Starfleet about the Changeling conspiracy. It is implied that they've been hailing several, like, well-trusted people, presumably other Voyager cast and whatnot. We just see Tuvok the last they try. That's implied, where someone says, like, we can't keep doing this. But what they have right now is presumably a recording of this transmission where a changeling disguised as Tuvok fully admits to being a changeling, changes on camera into Riker, admitting that they have Riker prisoner, admitting that they have Tuvok prisoner, and at the very least undeniably proving that at least one high-ranking member of Starfleet is a changeling, and causing reasonable doubt to the fact that there could be a serious plot. Now, the problem is, how do they get that, like, message to Starfleet? That's kind of the whole problem initially. But, like, why can't you just, like, beam it to Earth? Just beam it to Earth, the whole thing. Or, like, all the planet, Earth, Vulcan, Andor, Teller, like, everyone. Just start broadcasting that. Because there are reasons you wouldn't want to do that. It's risky. It will expose where the Titan is. The changelings might be deep enough that they could just wave it away, or nothing will happen until it's too late. Like, there are reasons you wouldn't want to do that, but it feels like something that should be addressed, especially in an episode that is very good at addressing potential problems. Like, the best modern episode in, hey, this is a serious, like, problem or easy route to victory, why can't we take it? I actually praised Voyager a lot for, by the end of Voyager, it'd been like 14 years of making that style of show. And so often, the audience understood what was possible, and, like, the writers understood what was possible. And, Voyager can often do just kind of like whatever the heck it wants with the technology, but that consistency is still there. What I mean is, like, in early TNG, there are problems where, like, the transporter's down, and it's like, season 1 of TNG, well, why don't you use the shuttle that has a fully independent transporter, or, like, power system, or, I don't know, something like that. Like, there's a very easiest, obvious path to victory they don't take, because it hadn't been invented yet, and it's just a plot hole, like, retroactively in early Next Generation. By the end of Voyager, when you sit down for a meeting and they're like, Janeway's like, right, here's the problem, is the audience, I mean, I assume this is like pretty common, but I would often find I'd be like, okay, beam him out. And then, like, a character suggests that, and Kim is like, oh, the subspace interference, we can't do it. And someone's like, right, what about we take a shuttle down? Oh, we can't do that because of this. And meetings in Voyager tended to be a bullet point list, almost, of why every simple solution doesn't work, and then they can actually get into the episode. That kind of thinking, like, the scene I'm thinking about in particular, if we want to jump ahead a bit, is I loved this bit where Crusher's like, yeah, I can probably make something that exposes all the changelings. But something that I wouldn't have even considered, and, like, it probably would have been years after I read it on Reddit and go, actually, yeah, that's a bit iffy, is she's like, hey, this is basically... even if it's not what we're doing, like, you could very easily turn this... It is a weapon against a specific species that only targets a specific species, and that's, like, incredibly ethically questionable. And this is also a species where we've already unleashed a virus that was incredibly ethically questionable by an organization we condemn that was exactly that, targeting this exact species. I love that that was brought up. It's like, it wasn't, okay, we're not gonna do it. Like, there could still be a reason they do it. That's not what I'm asking for. It's like, bring this up, justify it. This was almost like the first proper conference meeting since the classic Star Treks. Like, no jokes. I made fun of the last one we had where Riker had a joke about Picard saying burgle. And I'm like, other than that, this was a perfect conference room scene. Yeah, this was problem A. Let's get ready to not talk about problem B for quite a while. And don't worry, no, screw it. Let's get the problems out of the way. Problem B, which is not this episode, but this episode confirmed it. I don't know if I'm going to find a clip, but I absolutely hate what I'm not even going to call Starfleet phasers that don't appear to have a stun setting. That to me is like a fundamental... You don't even know what you're working with, which based on the rest of the episode, they very clearly do, but I can't even fathom... Like, either everybody is actively choosing to murder everyone that's being shot. Not just kill them, but, like, actual dissolve setting, like ultra kill. There's the joke when people beam down to a planet and someone's like, all right, phasers to stun, and everyone takes their phasers and hits some buttons, is the implication that Starfleet phasers are stored on Mega Kill? Because otherwise, why would they all have to turn their phasers down? That's kind of what this is. It's like no one takes the time to turn their phasers down. That's seriously detracting from the show to me, and I hate it. The rest of this episode is going to be entirely praise and gushing about how good it was. So I'm glad we got that out of the way. Best of Trek, worst of Trek. You'd be really surprised if we don't see Adam Cathy. I read that as you would be surprised, and I'm like, you shouldn't be. Because even, like, out of universe, like, Kate Mulgrew is active in Prodigy. She's, like, around. I don't think she's busy with much else. I could be entirely wrong there. But she's also been expressing greater and greater interest over the years of appearing in live action. And I'm pretty sure she's outright said that she'd kind of be down for Star Trek Janeway if the script is good. And so getting her in, like, Picard not only seems easy, like, if they wanted her, they could ask and she'd be like, yes. But it also feels like if you're Kate Mulgrew and you're considering maybe doing a prominent live action role, this would be a good way to test it. I would almost be more surprised if we didn't see Admiral Janeway. Because also, everyone would love that, even though she's in Prodigy, everyone would just love. What I'm kind of expecting, especially now that we know we have, like, Tuvok in the room, Tim Russ, is that the end of the season, there's the big battle with all those ships in the museum going up against Vedic, because every ship is interconnected. except the old ships in the museum, so the fleet's going to be disabled somehow. What I'm expecting, like my most kind of this might not happen prediction, is that when Voyager joins the battle, it's crewed by the Voyager cast, or at least a good chunk of them. Like, Admiral Janeway is commanding Voyager, Seven's probably there for some reason, Tuvok is there. Like, Voyager, commanded by the Voyager cast, is in the finale of this season. That I'm locking that in. That's my, like, if I'm right, my amazing prediction. But we'll just have to see. Either way, I expect we'll get Janeway, like, somehow. Moving on, I think I already gushed enough about this conference scene. Because, yeah, I mean, another thing about this episode is it's just engaging. I was engaged with it the entire time, pretty much. Other than, of course, the scene we've already talked about. It's engaging. One of the reasons I said it felt like Deep Space Nine isn't just because it was good. Isn't just because it's dealing with things I think is a natural continuation of Deep Space Nine. It's an event that took place during the war that would make sense for Deep Space Nine to have done. It just didn't. Is that, it's like I don't want to say I enjoyed the Vadic plotline because it's just horrible. Though it's well written, but it's like, it's not fun. It's not nice. It's not something I would want to watch, but it is so well written and executed that I'm gripped anyway. I always talk about in late Deep Space Nine, like season 7 Deep Space Nine is depressing. Like it's a depressing show, and I'll often find myself watching it. It's like, why do I watch this show? It's really depressing. And then, you know, when I have that thought, Kira turns around and just says, "Yeah, Damar, what kind of people?" And I'm like, and then, you know, after a stinger like that line, Garrett comes up and says, "Don't be, like, sorry. If Damar truly is the man to lead a new Cardassia, then, like, the pain of recent events only makes what you said more potent." And I'm like, that's why I'm watching it. It's so incredibly well written. It's almost a display, like, less entertainment and that I'm watching a story. It's more like I'm just watching some incredibly skilled feat. Like, that's kind of what it was. And yeah, I adore it. I mean, I said last episode, moving on to the next scene, that I wasn't sure about what they do with this character. Again, Alex is here, very focused, but we are going to dance around proper nouns. But I'd have to see what they do before I know how I feel. Yeah, no, they did it right. and I love it. Yes, it does undercut season 1. I think the explanation that maybe Adam wanted to give Data what he always wanted, being human, that is a good way to make it's not just like, oh, I guess he forgot that Data, wanted to die. Like, I guess he just forgot. But, like, it still undercuts it, but you've acknowledged that there needs to be a reason, and you've probably provided the best you could. I was happy with that. And also, season 1, like, that's a great scene, and it makes sense for Data, and I also fundamentally disagree with the moral principle of life is meaningful because it ends. And season 1 not that great. So I am absolutely not opposed to undercutting season 1, but I acknowledge that, you know, it does. Alexander Hopkins, do you think the wormhole from the end of season 2 will feed into season 3? Let me backtrack and do a completely different thing. That was, this is a nitpick, but it bothered me in this scene where Vadic is explaining that, you know, humanity was the monsters of the Dominion War and they see it that way. There's a line where, which by the way, I love that whole scene. There's a line where Crusher says, none of the atrocities or something, the whole war wouldn't have even need to happen if you didn't initiate it. And Vatic was just like, yeah, whatever. And I went, hang on, no. That's not what happened. The Dominion War started because the Federation chose to blockade the wormhole. They chose to mine it. They actively chose to interrupt the transport of goods, yes, troops, but like support of the Dominion with one of its member states. And I love that about Deep Space Nine, that the Federation took the first act of the Dominion War. You could argue, like, was the Federation the aggressors? Maybe. That's, like, perspective. Like, yes, the Dominion were going to invade the Alpha Quadrant. They did a preemptive strike, but it was preemptive. Were the Federation the aggressors? Were they provoked? Like, maybe. One of the best things I love about how they start the Dominion War is it is all so gray, and, like, well, they're both the aggressors, and they were both provoked. They're both, like, in the right to start this war. And it's perfect ammunition for Vedic to go to Crusher and be like, no, we didn't start the war. You mined the wormhole. You blocked trade.
We didn't start the fire.
Yeah, we blocked trade between the Dominion and one of its member states. Like, that's what happened. That was a nitpick. But yeah. Strasvike, are you suggesting we might get some Bogatti, even though officially she will not appear? Officially, we're not supposed to be hopeful for more 32nd Century Trek, but look at the announcement from a few days ago. But Hopkins, to go back, I'd be surprised if we see that wormhole thread. I think that is set up for a future season, but also I can see it coming into play. This is also, we're in a tricky spot as we talk more about Jack and reveal more, because I, like a lot of people, know things about what is happening to Jack that I should not know. The story does not want me to know these things, and it has to do with subtitle spoilers. And so I can't really talk about it and speculate much without spoiling it for people who haven't seen it. And this leads into kind of the conclusion of, like, will that Borg set come back, leads into, are the Borg involved with what's happening? And I know, basically, I can't objectively talk about that, like whether they come back or not. So I think I'm going to kind of have to sidestep a lot of how Jack is going to go. Alexander Hopkins, I just find it really weird how Season 1 they never explained the AI interdimensional robot things, and then Season 2 they might not even finish the wormhole out of nowhere with no story to go with. I don't think they had to explain the AI. I think they did. AI is commonly persecuted, and so they form together to protect themselves and other AI. Bam, that's the explanation. I'd love to tie them into, like, that's the reason we have the galactic barrier. I'd love something to do that. I don't think it was necessary. I do think it's weird if that whole wormhole thing never gets addressed. But to me, that did feel more like they know the show that's going to replace Picard, and it's going to deal with that. That's kind of what it felt like. It'd be very strange if that literally goes nowhere, because that's not Chekhov's gun. That's Chekhov's gun's factory. That's the factory that produces the Chekhov guns. And you've built that factory that's just pooping guns onto the sidewalk, just overflowing out of this factory, but none of them, they're all fully loaded, but the trigger mechanism is missing from all of them. That's what you would do. But I do see your point that, like, both seasons, you can argue, have a dangling plot thread. I see the argument. But I feel like if you were to include them, they'd be kind of shoehorned in. It'd be like, hey, remember that wormhole? That's involved. Oh, it's closed now, bye. Like, I mean, if there's one thing this writing team has proven, it's that they can justify what they do. Like, the whole thing where Picard just goes, yes, I am that morally compromised, is the one time that they've failed. Like, that's the one time in a series chock full of character motivations and developments that fully make sense and are amazingly earned. Even in season 2, like, that's the one time. Yeah, you want more, you want there to be more to it. So do I. That feels like it's not going to be done with Picard. That's just the impression I got. Brent Spiner being Brent Spiner is amazing. Is there more to that sentence? I'm not sure there is. I mean, just Brent Spiner was amazing. He got both these characters back just instantly. The lore's always lore, but Data has like an emotion, which I guess he would have actually by like the end of the movies and stuff. But like still Data, but the Data that had all that character development, and also the Data that's now in this thing dancing around proper nouns. Oh god, why did it have to be Picard when I stream next to Alex? Like, I mean, I don't think there's much more to say here than Brent Spiner's performance was great, but I think we all know that, and we all know why Brent Spiner is great. OP! They need to top it off with the Deep Space Nine characters. I don't want them to bring Sisko back. I don't... no, someone actually brought up that this would be the only way I think you could bring Sisko back, is if the Dominion actually tried to come through the wormhole, through the Gamma Quadrant, and Sisko, like, up there in his celestial temple, was like, this is the time I came back. This is why I didn't come back, like, instantly in Deep Space Nine, because time has no meaning. Like, I was waiting for this moment, and now I'm back. Because I had to stop these changelings here and protect Bajor. Probably not even the Federation, because, like, you know, but that's kind of the only way you could do it. But now it looks like these are Alpha Quadrant changelings, kind of. The group did break away from the Great Link, but also, I don't think this season needs it. You could totally have the Deep Space Nine characters command the Defiant, like I think they're going to do with Voyager. I mean, you know, Kira, you wouldn't have Quark. It would be weird if Quark came to save the day, but, like, Kira was there. She's not Federation. Like, you could do it. I don't think the show needs it, and I think if you're going to bring back Sisko, first off, you'd have to convince Avery Brooks, which is a challenge. But, like, Avery Brooks is Star Trek's Christopher Eccleston, who played the Ninth Doctor. Everyone would love him to come back, but the first task is to convince him to come back, and that's not gonna happen. Yeah. Joshvike, I feel that Vatic could hear Bev in JL, and it was part of their ruse. They actually wanted Vatic to think she's taking control of the ship and finally find out where they want to take Jack. That is a headcanon to try and justify something that sucks. That's just the Timeless Trial didn't happen. It was all a lie from the Master. It's like, no, that did. We're just trying to justify it. But if we're saying that's the case, that means that Picard and Crusher they heard this story of Vedics. They fully understand that they, not personally, but their government wronged Vedic, and they are fully justified in believing that the Federation are monsters and have an absolutely, like, perfectly valid reason to hate them and want to bring them down. And instead of trying to prove them Vedic wrong, that the Federation as a whole is not responsible, or even, like, the punishment is too severe, they didn't try and convince her of that, which I would imagine they firmly believe. They went, let's try and get Vedic to think we're going to execute her. All that's going to do is reaffirm Vedic's beliefs. I kind of think the stance they took was Vedic is too far gone. Like, maybe we did it, but she's too far gone and can never be redeemed. And that's... No, like, could you imagine Cisco if he, like, in, not Duet, but the episode where him and Ducat are stranded on the planet and finally go, like, face to face, they finally fully look at, like, Ducat. Is he insane? Is he evil? All that. If, like, Cisco's conclusion in that episode is Ducat is pure evil. That is Cisco's conclusion. Cisco believes this. Could you imagine if Cisco came to that conclusion and then just, like, shot Ducat dead? Like, no, and this is Cisco. This is like, I'm going to literally burn the atmosphere of a colonized planet to get at, what's his face? Oh my god, Eddington. Like, this is Cisco we're talking about, and Cisco wouldn't even do that. Yeah, P.S. just sneak Ducat somehow. That would be challenging. Ducat's in, like, hell. Isn't that? Ducat's in hell for all eternity. That would be a direction to take it, but, yeah. So, Spike, I feel that Vedic could hear... Oh, I read that one. OP, no, Jake would be better. Kira and maybe the DR. Jake would be, like, the reporter in, for, Frontier Day. Like, Jake's not Starfleet. Jake is a reporter. I think that's a great way to get Jake into modern Star Trek, is just randomly he's a reporter. I am kind of surprised Lower Decks has never had Jake do one of the newsreels, but I think I looked it up and he's not really acting anymore. Maybe they've tried and he just doesn't want it. There's that alarm. That beeps. Every day that beeps and we've never been able to figure out what it is. I don't know if you heard it. And it's like randomly. We don't know what it is, but it beeps. Yeah. It's kind of a surprising one because it'd be so easy to fit Jake in. Just because the dialogue felt intentionally stilted. I think that's genuinely, Crusher had a genuine crisis of, I don't know, like, I think I have lost my moral compass. Like, think of Crusher. Crusher's whole thing in Next Generation, she was a doctor, but first and foremost, but all that went out the window when Wesley was in danger. Like, she's a mother, first and foremost. That is her, like, above all else, I'm a mother, this is my child, and I will protect him. I have no doubt that Dr. Crusher was prepared to just kill Vedic at the start of that interrogation to protect Jack, and that terrified her. Like, it terrifies her that she actually is prepared to do that. That's why her voice and her hands shake. Like, and the only reason she doesn't is because she knows in order to keep her son safe, they have to extract information from Vedic. Once that is done, she allows Picard to do that, which is what we've seen with Wesley all the time. When Wesley's in danger for stepping on the grass or being kidnapped by, like, Space Atlantis, Dr. Crusher is, like, physically restraining herself because Picard needs to sort the situation and she knows that. And it kills her. And once they have all the information from Vedic, she knows that she is prepared to just execute her to keep her son safe, and that terrifies her. My problem is that Picard's response is, yeah, fuck it, let's just do it. That is my response. Like, that's my problem. Not that Beverly's able to do it. That is entirely consistent and natural. It's that Picard is just like, yeah, I guess we are. Picard hears, like, I hear it more as a plea. Like, Picard, I have lost my moral compass. You are literally, like, the physical embodiment of morality. Please save me from what I know is wrong, but I'm about to murder Vedic. And Picard just goes, okay, let's do it together. Like, that's the problem I have with the scene. The way you should have done is, especially, it would have gone against, like, earlier in the season, is anybody you knew still the person they truly are? That's the moment where you go, yes, we've changed, we've grown, our circumstances have changed, maybe even our priorities, but we are still the same people with the still same core beliefs. Like, that was the direction to take the scene, for so many reasons. And my problem is that you just went, yeah, I guess we're not. Yeah. Benjenium. Korik seems to love Lower Decks in his podcasts and streams. I did not know he did those. I think he'd do it if they asked. Love the idea. Like, Lower Decks has had just random news announcers who could be anyone. I am kind of amazed that it's not Jake. It wouldn't even detract from the scene if it was Jake. Like, some of them maybe, but not all of them. Like, just, I'm amazed Jake's not a... Because, like, he doesn't even really have to go to the studio. If Jake does podcasts, he could record those lines at home. Like, it's animated. You don't even need to get him into the studio to do Lower Decks. Opie, imagine Bashir showing up. He was part of Section 31 after all. I've heard the, pitch, the Deep Space Nine. He's somewhere here. I don't know.
Oh, there he is on the bed.
He, like, in the pitch of Deep Space Nine Season 8, that, like, the Deep Space Nine writers, for that documentary they did, they pitched Season 8. Or, like, the first episode, they kind of wrote it. That's the bit I don't like, is Bashir joining Section 31. It is to take the organization down, but, like... I don't know. I've never liked... Same with Trip. I'm like, why? You seriously have to justify how these characters are like, yeah, screw it, Section 31. That's why I kind of liked Malcolm. Was Section 31. And he realized it was bad and he left. Like, that works. But, yeah, I don't know. This is... I mean, I love all this. I love that they turned Nemesis. That is a hated movie, but I think people are warming up to it more, like, nowadays. I've always quite liked Nemesis. That they actually take, like, core parts of Nemesis and, like, continue them off and turn them into something beautiful. Because I like what happens in Nemesis. I like, we'll call it Data's arc in Nemesis. I like that. I really did. But this just turns it, like, this is also equally good, if not better, and it's in a great episode and season. Like, yeah, that's even better. I will say, it did kind of throw me here, where Data here says, like, Picard, like, what happened, the scimitar. I feel what we're supposed to get from the audience is that, like, Data remembers the events on the scimitar, which, Alex is next to me again, so I'm not going to explain why he shouldn't, but I feel like you probably know why he shouldn't. But I'd have to check Nemesis again, like, when the scimitar shows up. I think it's early, because that could also be, like, Picard, what the hell are we doing here? I thought we were in orbit of Romulus and the scimitar was outside. Like, that doesn't necessarily mean, like, this... Alex is here, how do I word this? There's a good, like, hour of Nemesis that, like, this character doesn't know happened. And I'm perfectly fine with that, but, yeah, this is not the same character we see at the end of Nemesis. This is the same character we see in the beginning of Nemesis, kind of thing. But as long as they don't, like, directly contradict that, it's all perfectly internally consistent. You know what they've done? Is this feels like a writer going... I want it to be, like, Data with his full set of memories, so I'm gonna mention the scimitar. And if the audience wants to headcanon that means Data remembers everything in Nemesis, they can, and they can enjoy it. And if the audience member, the viewer, doesn't, they can say, oh, that's just the last thing Data remembers happening, was, like, the scimitar was there, and they can enjoy it. So, again... in terms of how absolutely well, like, perfectly done this script is, I think that's what happened. And so you can choose what Data is standing in front of us here. How many of his memories does he have? Also, please let Data impersonate LOL. I'm just, you acknowledged it. I don't think I didn't notice you forgot it. They mentioned that there are 4 constructs, like, in this head. Data, Lore, Alton, and I assume Lau, but I feel like Data's got... What about Grandpappy? Does anyone remember Grandpappy Soon? I'm pretty sure he's floating around in Data's head. What about, like, that wife, Soon's wife? Is he in Data's head? There's a lot of people in Data's head. I think it's more than lol. But no, I mean, Brent Spiner was incredible. Like, he just is. More development on these changelings. We've really... I mean, these were opening mystery boxes we didn't even know were there. I might have to rewatch this knowing what I do later in the episode, but this guy mentions that, like, you... No, I think I'm wrong here. This guy mentions that something about, like, you were created, which I took is big floaty head changeling, like, created these special changelings to do the plot of the season. No, he's referencing the experiments. So yeah, I mean, I'm completely off there. Never mind. But this is a good example. It is in the same episode of a show knowing the twist, and like the characters who know the twist behave like they know the twist even though you don't. It's why I love season 1 of Steven Universe. Like, it's just so good. I won't spoil the twist if you've never seen it, but you should watch it because it's like the biggest example of after the last episode or the season, you want to go back and watch the first season again and realize how, like, everyone but the main character knows the twist and they all act like it and they all clearly reference the twist, but you don't notice it because why would you? I love stuff like that. Just okay, I'm so grateful to see Data either way. TNG crew without Data feels like something big is missing. Like, we're talking about, like, an hour or two of memories that he's missing. Like, yes, I think this Data is a different person than the Data at the end of Nemesis, but, like, he is the exact same person as Data from his creation, all the way up to when he tried to repair B4. And, like, that's such an inconsequential difference. And we already saw, like, the Data at the end of Nemesis. He already had his arc. Like, we've already seen what happened to him. Like, we're talking about 2 hours. This is the same person. Like, for all intents and purposes. Kind of like how, in Prodigy, Hollow Janeway is Admiral Janeway, but there's also an Admiral Janeway running... Well, sorry, she's Captain Janeway, but there's also an Admiral Janeway running around who's a fundamentally different person. They just happen to have been the same person for a while. Going on... This is a scene where I can kind of start to see what people are saying about Star Trek Legacy. Like, in the Academy stream I did yesterday, I talked about how I don't want Star Trek Legacy, because as I understand the pitch, it's basically every single character from Picard except the TNG cast, which is, with some exceptions like Jack, is every character I don't like, except Seven, who, as I've said before, I think we should just kind of get rid of anyway. But here, you know, I could see the LaForges, they haven't really done anything to make me want more, but at the same time, I don't dislike them. This here, you know, you're giving them stuff. I could see Jack leading a season. Really, it's just like Raffi and Shaw, who I want to go away. Hey, notice that the best episode of the season doesn't have any Raffi in it. I wonder if that's coincidence or not. I believe in coincidences. Coincidences happen every day. I don't trust coincidences. But yes. The best episode doesn't have Raffi. I'd love to rank all of these episodes when it's done and see if all the ones at the bottom have Raffi in them. Yeah, going forward. Oh, by the way, now if we cut back here, I find it kind of odd that this is a meeting between Seven and Tuvok, and like the crew are hiding out of frame. so like Tuvok doesn't see them, but Seven's constantly glancing. Like there's no way in hell Tuvok doesn't know there are other people on this ship. Maybe they don't want him to know who, but like they know. Yeah. Going forward, now let's talk about this because this is a great scene. Oh no, I love as well. Jack has a moment here where he really comes to terms with like people are dying for him and like putting themselves on the line, and yeah, like for the first time, I'm kind of surprised it didn't directly get addressed. Where Jack's like, "Do you have any idea what it's like?" To have people die for you and be willing to die for you. And Picard gives a look of like, of course I do. And that's kind of the moment for the first time where we see Picard look at Jack, and this is never said, but I'm like, for the first time, not only do I see this is, dodging proper nouns. I see Jack is like what he is to Picard, but I see Picard looking at Jack and seeing it for the first time. Because, like, yes, Picard's response should have been like, yes, I know what it's like to have people die for me. I've got one of them sitting in the cargo bay right now. Do you want to go meet him? Like, that guy died for me. Like, I'm kind of amazed that didn't come up. But still, I mean, this is a great character-driven narrative. Like, this was just an exceptionally executed. The thing where he likes, I want to say Mika Burton, and I know that's not the character's name, but do we actually know what the Forge's first name is? We do. We certainly do. I just don't remember it. But yeah, you know, I like that when I was like, now there's someone you actually have a personal connection with. And the reason Riker threw him off in the first place is because Riker was like friendly to him and arguably did the most for Jack, and now he's like imprisoned solely because of that. Like, this was the perfect moment for Jack to kind of lose it. It's so thought out. It's like the exact opposite of season 2. It's just amazing. I get instantly like, yeah, Lore's taking over the ship now. This is a completely unexpected turn of events, and it leads us. Is that the upcoming thing? I gotta skip it. Like, where is it? God, this scene. God, can I get that exact frame? No. I want the frame of sad LaForge. I want to talk about this with the scene. There's a face I see in this thumbnail, and that's the face I want to see. I don't care how long it takes. I'm finding this face. I'm not still streaming audio, am I? I lied. I care a little bit how long it takes. Oh, I'm streaming video, though. Let's get rid of that. There we go. We'll go with this. This scene between LaForge and Data, I've heard the complaint that, we never see LaForge deal with Nemesis, and, like, LaForge is the character who should have. Yeah. This was the first scene that's like, let's make the audience cry. That wasn't the episode, but, I mean, it's more than just this scene. The way Picard and Geordi react to Data in this whole episode, and this scene in particular, where, like, Alex, are you listening? Good, Alex isn't listening. The way they react to, like, they just got him back, and they're having to face with the possibility of losing him again, and losing him right before his eyes. Like, I talk about the writing, but every single one of these scenes is acted to perfection, in every way. Like, Geordi just breaking down, like, begging to Data, just, like, completely ignoring Lore right in front of him, because he doesn't give two shits about Lore right now. He probably doesn't even give a damn about the Titan. He's just desperately trying to, like, talk to Data, and, you know, I mean, he explicit. God, I'm gonna start crying just saying this. The things like, how long has it been since Nemesis? 20 years, thereabouts? And the whole conversation just starts. I don't think I can get through this. The whole conversation just starts with Geordi saying, like, life rarely gives you a second chance, so by God, I'm gonna take this. And just, like, pouring his heart out to Data, like, everything he wanted to tell him about, like, how you brought me out of yourself and the loss, and I'm probably gonna have to stop describing this because I'm gonna just break down if God, this is worse than I was in the episode. I'm autistic, and this is because this is the first Make You Cry episode of my videos. I have to talk about this. I'm autistic, which, among other things, means that basically, is like the briefest possible explanation. Sort of the core thing of autism is that, like the Vulcans, our emotions are extraordinarily powerful and too powerful for the brain to actually handle. And so what it will do is shut down. Like, in extreme cases, sometimes literally, like, it won't kill you, but you might have to, like, go to sleep. Or it's just, like, I'm gonna literally turn off the emotions now. And so, often with these Make You Cry episodes, it's hit or miss which way my brain goes. So I've done a lot of work to shut that down and be like, no, you don't get to shut down, brain. I'm shutting down the shutdown. But, like The Visitor, I've said before, one of the last times I watched it, the opening music started, and I just started, like, full-on crying for 45 minutes, and then a bit more after the episode ended. But, like, the last time I watched it, I don't think I cried at all. My mind just went, like, nope, shut down button. And so, this was definitely, personally, like a tears to the eyes moment, but I'm like, on another day, this is a full-on crying. And I think I've just proved, I almost lost it there on stream, just describing the scenario more. Like, Star Trek has not made me react like that since Simultitude, I think. The episode where they grow a new trip, and then they have to deal with that trip dying.
I haven't cried that hard as Star Trek since you made me watch the child die!
God, yeah, the child, which in the grand scheme of things isn't even the most sad Star Trek episode, the one where Troy has a child, like, that just dies at the end.
Was unconsensually impregnated by a star.
Season 2, episode 1. This is a scene that's so powerful, I had to stop explaining why it was powerful because I was crying on stream. That's why I'm not wearing my glasses.
Fucking baby.
Yo, you get to this point. No, this is one of the most impactful scenes, like...
At least I know I'm a crybaby. You're just it's very hard to get me to cry. I'm crying.
You haven't even entered the relationship that this is exploring. Like, God, and, like, this wasn't just going back to the relationship between, like, I'll say it, between Geordi and Data. This is, like, entirely unseen events.
Do you need a happy blankie?
No, I'm good now, because I took a break to explain autism. This isn't entirely, like, this is
Happy Autism Awareness Month.
Is it? Oh,
yeah.
I wasn't aware. It's not very good at its job. This is, you know what? No, I'm gonna say...
On stream, Don't Support Autism Speaks. It's shitty.
I know that this episode didn't come out on April Fool's Day, but I choose to believe the scene where Picard just went, yeah, screw it, we are that morally astray, is an April Fool's joke. That's my headcanon. But, this is building off this relationship we saw in TNG, and taking off-screen a natural continuation that we didn't see. We don't see the events that are being described, but they're so natural that we understand them, and they're being described so well that it is still so impactful. I'm gonna go to the Reddit after this like at the end of this stream, and I'm gonna see, like, constant posts about how people are still crying about this scene. This is one of the best scenes in Star Trek. It It is. Like, God. I haven't cried because of Star Trek in a long time, and that was good. I'm glad I got to cry on stream a bit today. I think as well, I love how for this whole bit that I've been explaining this, the chat has said nothing, and so I choose to believe that all of you are busy crying right now, and so you're not talking. That's my headcanon. Going back a bit, yeah, I'll say again in what doesn't matter because it was so perfect. I think it was a little muddled on what exactly happened. Like, the visuals here, it kind of looked like Vatic the Changeling possessed the experimenter, didn't, like, mimic her. It kind of looked like she went inside, the experimenter, and that's what these marks are. They're like the changeling inside her. But I was a bit confused. Then when she said, like, I can spread this, it kind of made it sound like a changeling is impersonating Tuvok, like they forced Tuvok to drink a liquid, and then, now there's a changeling inside him kind of thing. But the way I think they're going is, no, like, she went to a changeling, they drank this liquid, and now they're like her. So I think this explanation, like, literally, not like the, writing, what it was, like, what's actually happening, that was great. The literal explanation of here is what is happening could have been a little clearer. It's kind of like Ash in Discovery, where I still honestly don't really understand what was up with Ash. Is this Ash, but they put, like, what's his face? Is it Kor? Whoever, the Klingon, like, in him? Did they put Ash in the Klingon? Did they surgically alter the Klingon to look like Ash? I don't understand. Vogue, that's it. But, like, I don't think it's that bad. And even then, it'll get cleared up at the end when they find all the real people. But, I think that could have been a little clearer, I will say. Anything else in here? Yeah, one thing I like about this whole scene where we see what happens to these changelings is we kind of see, but we know what happens to Odo because it's described a lot, and we see kind of the same things that happen to Odo. There's the episode where they find that, like, baby changeling, and Odo and his former experimenter have to try and, like, get it to talk, kind of raise it. It's a great little conflict because, of course, Odo completely resents what, for all intents and purposes, his father did when Odo was in the lab, but is kind of coming to terms with, like, he might have had to, or, like, even if he went too far, a lot of what he did was justified. And Odo talks about that time, like, the pain, the discomfort, everything, like, just awful. It's absolutely awful. This is, like, 100 times worse. We already have that kind of, like, this is wrong from Odo, that vibe of this sort of thing is wrong and those sort of things. But this is, like, this is like almost, for lack of a better word, a comical extreme of, like, Odo. And it's Starfleet doing it. I like that this isn't someone in a Section 31 uniform. Like, I think the implication, because it is Daystrom Station, Daystrom Institute being a division of Starfleet, that Starfleet fully understood and condoned these actions. I think that's what they're going for. And I think it's going to have to be a little different in my head. Like, I don't know. There are ways to make it work. Like, because I don't like this idea that Section 31 is just like any other branch of Starfleet. But that just drives the point in home so much more. That, like, this is so much worse than what happened to Odo, and we already know how bad it was for Odo. This episode was just so incredibly done. Like, it's hard to have words. I feel like this is going to be a quicker live stream because I just don't really have words for how good a lot of this was. It's just everything other than like the points of criticisms I've made are exceptional. The acting, the performances, like I took that example at the beginning of the scene where Dr. Crusher's like, I took an oath to do no harm, and I'm starting to question that because first off, it's a great line with references to her being a doctor, the mother, everything, like talk that out, but like it's delivered amazingly with their shaky voice, with the perfect eyes, with the hand trembling exactly as much, the speed that the phaser is drawn, like every single aspect of that was just perfect. And the whole thing is like that. Just because it seems to me Daystrom Station became Section 31's off the books lab. But like, how does that happen? If Section 31 is a rogue organization, how do they just get Daystrom? Something Daystrom, which is like a public... It is a branch of Starfleet, but it's also like... It's more of a public feel. Like, you don't just give that away. It's a very big station, and it's very clearly kind of like the Jupiter station model. It's also got the Pathfinder array kind of things, like what they use to communicate with Voyager in, believe it or not, Star Trek Voyager, which to me says it's an older station. It was built with like the Enterprise D hulls, which Section 31 can't just kind of get. I like that in this era, Section 31 doesn't have ships, because we're well after Discovery. They don't have ships. Like, how does Section 31 just get 6 Galaxy-class ships, and how do they hide this thing? This is sanctioned. Like, right now, this is sanctioned. And it's hard to imagine that, like, it used to be unsanctioned, but now they found it, and they're like, screw it, you can keep all this stuff. There's a Genesis device in here. There's a sim bauble, whatever, the thing that controls the Borg, Vinticulum? I can never remember the name, but sometimes I do, and I doubt myself that I remember it. Yeah, and I mean, like, a lot of my complaints with this episode have to do with the series as a whole, because of course they do. I've said a bunch of times, Picard is built on a flawed foundation with this Federation, but if you want to hear more, legitimately, go watch my Academy live stream yesterday, and, like, skip to when we're done talking about Academy, and then it's, like, a big discussion about what would be the proper level of continuity. It was a great discussion I did not expect, but yeah, I've talked about that a lot here anyway. God, look at this. You can see this perfect thumbnail I want of, like, sad Geordi, but that was incredible. I don't think I've ever seen Geordi and gone, wow, that was amazingly acted. Not because he's, not amazingly acted, but because Geordi never really had big arcs like that. He was always just kind of there doing his job. This feels the first time they really went to be like, oh my god, like, LeVar Burton can act. Like, god, wow. I've never seen him in anything except maybe, like, Reading Rainbow. I don't remember as a kid, but I don't think he was acting in Reading Rainbow, as I understand the premise. I think he was just, like, hosting Reading Rainbow. Although that'd be, like, worth a lifetime achievement. It turns out LeVar Burton actually hates books. He was just acting. And it'd be like, wow, that's a phenomenal actor. The method acting to the natural extreme. I think it also works, actually. I hadn't considered this, that the last episode we left off with, like, Riker on Vatic's ship. So I guess technically he's in this episode. And, like, a big thing with Troy, and that's literally not addressed. Where the audience is kind of left hanging, and presumably that's next episode. But... Well, no, did that just happen off screen? Like, Riker sent in a compromised code. We're not going to see that interrogation. Unless they do, like, a jump back in time thing. But, it helps the audience relate to, like, kind of maybe the helplessness of the Titan. The fact that they don't know what's going on. Like, outside their little bubble of their ship. They don't really know what's going on. I've also just realized... Was it impossible to track the Titan when they were calling Tuvok, presumably at, like, Earth somewhere? I guess maybe they were moving around every time they called someone. Like, you could justify that. No, alright. But, God, I was not expecting... Like, I've been liking Picard, but I was not expecting to feel like I was watching Deep Space Nine again. In every way that matters, which is to say the quality. Yeah, I don't know if I have much to say. Well, I guess at the end, again, I'll predict where I think the next few episodes are gonna go. Which is where this will come into play. We saw more about Jack. I really don't know what to say about that. He's gained a new ability, I guess, is what you'd call it. But if I can find the guy, where the hell is Jack? I don't know. He's somewhere. He's here. And also at the end, I should actually watch these end credits and see what they reveal, because, oh, look at that. The museum, the big museum is in the end credits. Like, those ships are totally in the end battle. The Stargazer, come on, this is the end battle. Like, oh my. The Defiant and Voyager are flying around the museum. Look at these ships are flying around. The final battle. And look, that's not the Titan, is it? 80107. Hang on a minute. I'm gonna be right back. 80107. 80102. That's the Titan. Like, look, this screen right here is the final battle. The final battle is a bunch of random ships. They attack the museum, because that's where our heroes are, and all the legacy ships help fight. This, like, I've seen comments that this, the more and more it goes on, the more and more we see the end credits just talk about the plot, which is why I haven't been watching them, but it'd be fun to go and check them out. Let's see, Chesapeake, it seems... Oh, wait, I read that. LeVar Burton was the lead character in The Roots before he did TNG that aired on TV for weeks and weeks as a miniseries. Yeah, as I understand it, LeVar... Like, as much as the TNG cast have all become pretty big names, LeVar Burton was the selling point. Like, you would go watch TNG because it had LeVar Burton. He was their stunt casting, as I understand it. And of course, nowadays it'd be like Patrick Stewart would be the stunt. Like, that's why you go watch TNG. But, hey, I mean, it's called Star Trek Picard, not Star Trek LaForge. But, yeah, no, I don't really know anyone other than their role in Star Trek or Doctor Who. Chesapeake is the visor... It's the visor that killed it for Geordie's acting, but YouTube Roots and the LeVar Burton is really amazing acting there. You maybe want to watch the entire series. Actually, you're right. The visor really like, could you imagine the scene we just had if Geordie didn't tear up because he had the visor? It just wouldn't hit the same. And there was so much in, like, his eyes and, like, everything else too. It would have been powerful, but yes. I think it's a mix of he really didn't have those kind of stories and the visor. That, like, any plot, like, scene like this that would have been in TNG, the visor would have detracted from. Absolutely. I also like the reference. I don't know if you caught that these changelings are in constant pain. like Geordi was supposed to be with the visor. But I don't know, like, as a detail that can kind of help explain them, their attitudes and everything. That was something I really wish Star Trek wouldn't forget, that Geordi is in constant pain his entire life. It really likes to forget that and then bring it up every now and then, only to forget it later. Remember when Season 2 introduced the plot line that Pulaski could give Geordi real eyes and he would no longer be in constant pain, and Geordi's like, ooh, I'll have to think about it, and it never comes up again. Geordi's weird in TNG. Like, Geordi is a blind character who is fully, like, accepts that their visor gives them abilities that are necessary and they don't want to give it up. But kind of only when he has the opportunity to give it up. Every other time, he has a constant desire to have normal vision. Like, until it gives it to him, and he's immediately like, you know what? Nah. Maybe that kind of makes sense. Like, he wants both worlds, but I don't know. It always seems to be whichever one the script needs him to be, which is the one he doesn't currently have. That was Geordi's mentality. I just found it odd in TNG, but I mean, I think I complained last episode that, like, I didn't really feel anything having Geordi back because they didn't really do anything with him, in my opinion. No, this episode they did something with him. Like, this is how you bring someone back. Either like Tuvok, where this could literally be anyone, so long as Seven knows them. This could have been Admiral Bollocks. I messed up my joke. This could have been Admiral Bollocks, like, who Seven knew after getting home, after Voyager, and, like, you know, we've just never seen him before. But it makes sense to be, like, Tuvok or something, and, you know, fine. And the other way is to do what you've just done with Geordi. This is a picture of Geordi, where you... I mean, God, yeah. I see what people mean now, where they want... Is it Terry Mentalis to do another show? Because, I was on the fence, because Season 2 is abysmal, and Season 3 is fantastic. So, like, which one is the norm? But there's no way this is a fluke. Like, Pirates of the Caribbean is accidentally bad. There's no way this is accidentally bad. Deep Space Nine accidentally looks incredibly thought out from the very beginning, and they knew what was going to happen to every character from Episode 1 on accident. But Deep Space Nine is not accidentally good. It's that kind of thing. I did a 2-hour stream yesterday, so my throat is not in a great position. Yeah, so next episode, I feel like maybe we're just gonna drop the whole Riker and Troy thing. We're gonna get back to them later. We're not gonna see that interrogation or that episode I was excited for last time. So we've got 8, 9, 10. We've got 4 episodes left. Obviously, I don't think they're gonna do Prodigy. I think they're gonna sort of do Prodigy, where, like, there's definitely a decent chunk at the end of Picard that is a goodbye. Because it is extraordinarily unlikely we will see any of these characters ever again. Sorry, any of the TNG ones. Like, Worf might show up. I don't know if they did Deep Space Nine thing, but, like, it's basically it. And you almost don't want to see them again because it would undermine this. Assuming it's good. So, I think Season 9 is definitely going to be the start of the big battle, and in Episode 10 is going to, like, resolve it in the first, like, half. There'll kind of be final resolutions in, like, in some 15 minutes, and then, like, 15 minutes of goodbye. That's what I'm thinking. So in Episode 8 and 9, that means 9's going to be the start of Frontier Day. So they've got to get there at some point in Episode 9, I think. Sorry, 8. Maybe Episode 8 even is mostly Frontier Day, which means The next episode's got to be dealing with this, probably breaking Riker out at the same time. They book it to Frontier Day. They probably make it there, and then they try and, like, stop it. That's episode 8. They don't. The big whatever happens that the changelings are planning. That's the cliffhanger. Then episode 9 and 10. I think that's maybe the structure I'm going to go with. I've just realized the, like, nightmare thing is, in Daystrom Institute, the reason they have those bodies is something called Project Phoenix, if you read the little plaques. I've just had the horrible thought that, like, Project Phoenix is bringing back these old legacy characters, these famous people, but it's not quite right. That's why Picard's DNA isn't perfect. I'm going to get back to that. Is because it's an excuse to recast famous characters was part of Project Phoenix. There we go. I've invented the nightmare ending. Is they're like, yeah, we can now have anyone play Kirk because it was Project Phoenix, and so it doesn't really look like William Shatner because the DNA is wrong. God, that's literally just come out of my ass, but, like, that'd be awful. Anyway, there was something I forgot to address. The core premise, I mean, maybe Project Phoenix will understand this. We now know why the changelings want Jack. The changelings want Jack because they want Picard's DNA, and the body they have is an incomplete match. Like, it's incomplete, they can't get the full DNA, and they think they can extract it from Jack. Why is Picard's DNA unable to... Why can't you extract Picard's DNA from Picard's body? Let's accept that the body deteriorated in the time it could get to Daystrom. Obviously, not too much, because we've seen the body. It looks like Picard. It's visually fine. But yeah, the cells could have started to deteriorate. There are, like, trillions and trillions of cells in the body, and they're not all going to deteriorate the same way. Surely you could extract Picard's complete... Oh, god damn it, I've just realized an absolute major gaping plot hole, haven't I? You could extract Picard's DNA from his body. This isn't the plot hole, by the way. Like, just the body alone. And you don't need Jack. I'm going to abandon this plot now because... there's a worse hole, and they could address this one. The whole driving action right now is they need Picard's DNA. They need it. That is... The changelings need this for their plan. Here's another fact. The changelings have infiltrated the highest levels of Starfleet. Starfleet is compromised, and for all intents and purposes, is... controlled by changelings. Now, the reason they need Picard's DNA is because on Frontier Day, where they want to impersonate him, someone or something is going to scan Picard's DNA and detect if it's Picard or not. You know? That thing is presumably Starfleet, or at least Federation technology. And presumably, it can recognize Picard's DNA because it's in a database somewhere. A Starfleet database. Because where else would you have that DNA database? Maybe Earth has it, but, like, are we saying that the changelings are fully capable of infiltrating Starfleet at the highest levels, but are not capable of obtaining a copy of Picard's DNA from that database? Is there some reason... Do they physically need to come in contact with the DNA to impersonate it? Well, no, because you had the one that was LaForge. Unless you say maybe they got it from, like, a shower or something, like some skin cell or whatever. But if they could impersonate, like, get it from one skin cell, then why couldn't they get it from the whole body? Like, I feel like they need to do some justification on why they can't just, like... infiltrate the head of Starfleet Medical, or heck, right now Picard is a wanted fugitive, which is weird if he's supposed to still show up in Picard Day. So okay, we'll say the changelings haven't made it public that Picard is a wanted fugitive. The changelings, why can't they infiltrate Starfleet security and just ask for it, or Starfleet medical, and just get the record and replace everybody who might notice that? I think you'd have to explain that, or else the entire plot doesn't make sense, and it's a great series, but it is still based on a plot that doesn't make any sense. I hope they justify that. They've been really good at me going, I think this might be broken, and then they justify it. But that's worrying now, and I think is going to detract from the entire series as I watch it. Because in the back of my head, it's like, why can't you just get his DNA? Isn't there an episode? There is. It's the episode where there's the virus that makes you old. And, like, Pulaski's in it, and she catches the virus, and she gets really old. And in that episode, they need a copy of Pulaski's unaltered DNA to beam her back as she was normally. And to do that, they contact her previous captain for a transporter prize. Okay, I'm wrong. I thought they contacted, like, Starfleet to get it, which would say that you could just ask for that stuff if you had a reason. But yeah, there we go. Terry, listen in. Terry, you need to justify to me why the changelings can't just get Picard's DNA from a database, or even better, just, like, tamper with the security system that they could presumably control. Like, I'm assuming they orchestrated Frontier Day. They had the power to bring the entire fleet to Earth. Surely they could tamper with a metal detector, so to say. But, yeah, hang on. What am I doing? Star Trek Reddit. Let's just take a quick look. Anyone in chat? Disagreements? I've noticed you've all gone quiet. Have you just got, like, bored and left? But I'm surprised no one's interjected about this plot-breaking plot hole I think I've discovered. Plot-breaking plot hole. Yeah, sure, whatever. Oh my god. First comment that isn't an announcement about the new theory post. Ah, that opening. Tuvok. They thought they found an ally. Turns out, they ain't found shit. Which, if you don't get the reference, Tim Russ, that's a Tim Russ quote from Spaceballs. Better comb the desert for more allies. Goddamn. Do we even need more? Because that's the best thing we're going to get from the Reddit. They have actually, here's someone. You know, if nothing else, you have to admire Laura's consistency. Absolutely no higher goals or aims, no attachments, just a determination to make everything as chaotic and difficult as possible. I disagreed with this take. This felt like similar to how I think the Federation never understand the Borg, even when, like, people explicitly explain it to them and they should know because they were assimilated. That's not how I really got Lore. I mean, maybe I'm wrong here, but Lore wasn't just like an agent of chaos for chaos's sake. I don't know. There's been a Janeway reference in every episode. Like, God, it's not even foreshadowing at this point. It's just like, look, you know you want Janeway. Like, this, how can Picard possibly end without Captain and Admiral Janeway commanding a USS Voyager? How can this series end any other way? I don't understand. That's the ending, surely. If you told me this at the start, like, I watched Remembrance, and then you told me Picard would end with Admiral Janeway commanding Voyager with, at the very least, Seven and Tuvok, I'd be like, how the hell did we get there? But, it just makes sense now. That's interesting. Thanks, Section 31. I don't like how heavily we rely on Section 31, but that's an old take at this point. Yeah, Geordi reacting to Data, glorious, and overdue. Um, oh my god, I love this. On Reddit, I wonder if LOL is the key to reconciling lore and data. I would adore, cause they mentioned that LOL was there. They mentioned 4 personalities, and they only mentioned Data, Lore, and Alton by name. I would love if LOL comes in and essentially gets her family to behave. I would adore. I would adore that. Just VK, I think they really want Jack's Locutus nanoprobes because they found out that Picard's body doesn't have healthy ones. Why would they want the Borg, though? Like, I think there's a thing. There's, the line that, like, Jack wasn't meant for you either. Like, there is clearly more going on with Jack. There's that thing about, the Irramonant syndrome, whatever, which I'm fine with him changing. None of the plots that actually revolve around Picard having that disease actually require it to be a disease. That syndrome is a MacGuffin. It could literally be anything. They just need Picard to be kind of sick. That's the point. So absolutely, like, you could turn that into something bigger. You could turn a MacGuffin into something meaningful. But I'd love LOL to be the thing that brings lore and data together. Going through. There's gotta be a Janeway, surely. And I'm not saying too much, though. Oh yeah, again, this is, I noticed this as well, but I didn't bring it up. Someone says, I'm curious why everyone is preferring shuttles to transporters. That's true, because Vadic gave the line, take the shuttles, no transporters, which I think we're supposed to be because it could be a trap. They don't know what they're beaming into. But I still like the theory that they're infected somehow. Like, ooh, here's maybe a plot. Like, the changelings have infected transporters. That's why Ro never used them. That's why Jack was fine until they tried to beam him. And so in Frontier Day, they're going to release maybe some signal that, like, activates the nanoprobes that are in this point in everyone's body. And that could be a way you rope in the Borg, if that's what you want to do. That's how you could get your Locutus moment sort of thing. I think there's something there. And I like that there's still enough mystery. There's enough of a plot that's probably at least mostly right that we can, like, understand motivations. But there's still plenty of mystery, and Jack's just like a big old question mark. Still. There's definitely a transporters thing going. If there is not a plot about the transporters somehow being a part of the plan, then it's very strange. That would just be... Again, that's the Chekhov's gun factory that's slightly smaller across the first Chekhov's gun factory that's pooping guns without triggers into the road, and it's just making other guns that aren't even... it's just making ammunition, but it forgot to get the guns. You know, it's got guns without bullets. Without muzzles. Chekhov's muzzle-less guns. That's what that factory makes. Yeah, I think, though, that, as I said, if it weren't for literally one scene, this would be, like, the 4th thing I hand out my perfection medal for. And that scene detracted. That scene kind of threw me off. Oh, one more note. There's a scene where Vadic looks at her wrist at her Samsung phone, and it threw me out of it a lot, because it's clearly a Samsung when she first beams on in a Samsung case, because that's how they do the screens now. There it is. There it is. Oh, beautiful. Look at that. That's a Samsung. That case. Look, is that the volume buttons, or is that her glove? That's volumes and Bigsby on her Samsung device. And that threw me off. I think mostly because it is very clearly in a thick case like what I have, and way too big for her arm. But no, other than... I wanted to bring that up. Other than I'm sorry, that looks Klingon, which is weird. But other than that one scene, I would have given this a perfection medal. And even then, like, my complaints, like, my biggest complaint that is solely because of this episode, like the phasers of the series as a whole, is that it's a bit weird they don't just beam, like, that video proving Tuvok is a changeling just to loads of planets to try and expose the scheme. But there are also reasons why they wouldn't. I just think it's weird this wasn't brought up. That's, like, my only other criticism. I think this is probably the best single episode of new Star Trek. Perhaps Lower Decks does a lot of good, but, like, in Lower Decks does a lot of Star Trek, but I like that this made me cry. I like that this built off character relationships, and I mean, in terms of, like, just a single isolation episode, even if you hate Picard, I'm gonna be like, hey, watch TNG and then watch this episode. Like, it's just that sort of stuff. Justifique Locutus was able to communicate to all the Borg, and the test tube changelings want to use that tech to create their own Great Link. Then why wouldn't they grab Lore? That's my question. Like, right now, we have no real basis to believe the Borg are involved at all. This is just one thing we know that is kind of unique about Picard. Even then, it's not really unique. Loads of people have been assimilated and released. There are probably easier targets than Picard. But I don't know. I think there's something with Borg. I like the nanoprobe angle. I like the, like, nanoprobe transporter angle. But right now, it's all largely unfounded speculation. It's like, there are reasons to believe this would be true, but we've seen nothing in the show that would suggest that that's the route they're taking. Is my stance on it. But yeah, I can probably text my uncle after this episode. I'll text my uncle and say, you asked me how Star Trek Picard was on a scale of 1 to 10. I couldn't answer you. Let me tell you that Star Trek Picard just aired one of the best episodes I've ever seen. And be like, there's your answer. That's how it is. Yeah, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, even now, coming off that moment, which, thank God, if that scene where they went, yes, we are that morally astray, went anywhere, like, they prepared to execute the changeling, sure, but they didn't. If they had, I could never forgive this. But because it didn't really go anywhere, I can kind of ignore it. Honestly, yeah, just ignore it and be like, yeah, this was a fantastic episode with so much to it, and God, Geordi, and Data. Just that scene, I don't think you can say anything is the best single scene in Star Trek, because there's just so many and they're so varied. But that scene with Geordi and Data is one of those, like, I'm tied for best scene in Star Trek. Even, I can't imagine if you, like, grew up, not even necessarily grew up with TNG, but, like, you watched Nemesis when it came out, which I didn't. I was 2 when Nemesis came out. And so you actually waited that long, and if you felt like that was missing, like, I can't imagine how much more gratifying that scene would have been that you've been waiting 20 years for. Like, I remember when post-Nemesis content was a pipe dream. Like, that's just yeah, that'd be great. It'd be great, but it's never gonna happen. And now we got that. Like, that's just one of the best scenes in Star Trek, period. And the only reason I say one of is because quite clearly the best scene in Star Trek is a tied category. So yeah, well done. And I think I'll wrap it up there. I'm gonna just wait till you catch up with the stream so you can put any of your last thoughts in, but then I'm gonna head out. It's bad for a review, but like a lot of reasons this is one of the shorter reviews is I kind of don't have words for how good so much of this episode was. And there was probably a unusually disproportionate amount of negativity because I have words for why the 3 things that don't work, and I have very few words for why the 7,522 things that worked absolutely perfectly on every level worked perfectly on every level. It was phenomenal. It was the best episode since Enterprise, and it's up there among the best episodes. It's up there with Visitor, with Half a Life, with Real Life. It's up there. Notice that all those episodes make you cry. It's almost like the best episodes of Star Trek have something in common. But anyways, I will wrap it up there then. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. I probably should have hid that click